Okay, so I am going to show you how I edit with totally different lighting situations. And what I do is not necessarily the right way or wrong way, but it's what I did for this particular session. And you guys are going to laugh because this session, um, after the first few shots, I clicked the wrong button on my camera and switched out of shooting in RAW and started shooting in JPEG. And I didn't even realize it until after I imported the photos. So not only did I have super crazy different lighting situations, but I shot the entire session in JPEG. So bear with me. But I've got two images here from the session, this one and this one. And you can see they definitely look different, but what I try and do is really match the skin tones. And you can see that our skin tones are a little bit more red here than they are here, but I'm just going to show you one way in which I try and match my photos. So one tool I like to use is this R versus A. I don't know if it stands for anything, but basically you have a reference photo that you can drag and drop, or basically, sorry, yes, you drag and drop it, and that's going to be your reference photo. So this photo's already been edited. I do edit with presets, at least for the base, and I've been mostly using Noble, which is more of a film emulating preset, but that's sort of what I use for my base, and then go from there. So then once you have your reference photo, any photo that you click in your film strip after is going to be the active photo. So that's the one that you're going to be editing and keeping an eye on that. So if I were to go to settings and reset all settings, and then I go ahead and click on my Noble preset here, obviously I would start with exposure, bring that up right away, and already it's looking really good, but the warmth, I shot much cooler than I probably should have, but we're going to bring up the warmth there and bring down the highlights some. Again, I shot in JPEG by accident, so I'm dealing with a lot of harsh lighting, but I think it still kind of works for what I generally shoot with. So I'm going to go ahead and actually zoom into her skin, and then I'm going to zoom into my reference photo. And I can see that there's a lot of magenta going on in her skin, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually lower the magenta a little bit, probably right about there, and that does even it out a little bit. And then I'm going to warm up her skin even a little bit more. And I am going to actually decrease the exposure here, and I might increase my shadows. Yeah. So I think that's pretty much it with this active photo now that I look at it. So what I'll end up doing, maybe looking at it, I probably would edit a little bit more. So maybe let's try and switch the active versus the reference. So let's drag this photo to be the reference. So I'm going to drag that, and then I'm going to turn this as the reference, and see how there is a little bit more red in her skin here. Maybe I can tone that down a little bit. Maybe I'll do just a little. See, the trick with this was she had a little bit of red in her skin. So maybe what I'll do is I'll just do the brush. And sometimes, like, I have all these like preset brushes in here. Sometimes I'll just click a cooler brush, and we'll see how that plays out. Actually, you know what? I made my own redness reduce. Yeah, see how that sort of got rid of a lot of the redness? So I do a little bit of that, and then I might want to maybe brighten it up just a little bit. So let's go to dodge and lighten. Again, that was like, I think, a preset brush that I have already, but you could just use basically a brush and then set your exposure. And then I might increase that a little bit more. And then one thing I'm noticing is her hair is kind of like yellow now. I guess when you go back and re-edit photos, you see a bunch of other things. So maybe what I'll end up doing is doing a cooler brush here and see about toning down her hair some. Because in this shop where she was, there was a ton of just mixed lighting that was going on. And of course I've got like the window light on this side of the image, and then the artificial lighting on the other side. So, so yeah, and then I might maybe bring down the saturation a little bit. So let's see how that is. So one thing I am seeing now, her face almost looks a little too pale. So what I might do is I might bring down that and bring up the warmth a little bit. And yeah, so that's looking pretty good now. She's still looking a little magenta on this side and compared to this image, and I find that sometimes when I stare at one image and then look at another, it just really brings out the issues. So I'm going to go ahead and change the reference image back to this image and see if I can pull some of the pink out of her skin even more by reducing just the magenta here without going too far green. And then I might use that redness reduce brush, which I created myself. I have this color that counteracts it. It's a little bit of a blue-green, and then I desaturate some. So if I use that, we can see how her skin is looking. Yeah, so again, it looks a little white still, so I might increase the warmth just a little bit in the image, and that helps bring out the warmth in the skin. So that's about it, and so that to me looks a little more consistent. Again, this shoot had so many different variable lighting situations, and so I just kind of went in and then looked to did this sort of setup with the reference and the active. But then one thing that I do also, I'm very obsessed with making sure that my whole gallery looks consistent. I think that just comes from my days in wedding photography. So this was actually, let me see if I can find her final album that I gave her. Let's see. You can see my whole Lightroom is just kind of crazy. So let's go to that. And then, so I use Lightroom to sort of see how consistent we're going. So I click on the web module, and it almost brings up like a gallery. And what I like to do is see all my images sort of flow in a gallery and see if they're flowing in a consistent sort of manner. And you can see, like, yeah, there's got a ton of different lighting situations here, but using that reference image versus the active image really helps. Another way I like to look at the images is through the library, but I changed the view up here. Let's see, view. Let's see, view options. I don't want to see the bottom label, and I don't want to see sorry, there we go. So it's a little less distracting to view in library mode. And then what I do is I increase my thumbnail size. So I'll just sort of scroll through here to see how the whole gallery is flowing, and it does help see how the images look. Again, what I try and do is just really match the skin tone, because I feel like that usually helps get a consistent image. So here are some other photos inside with terrible lighting. Again, I shot in JPEG. So the trick here was really looking at her skin and trying to, make sure it looked very, similar to what was outside, and working with the artificial lighting. So that's pretty much how I go about looking to make sure my galleries are consistent with such a different lighting scenario. And again, I think that just comes from my days in wedding photography, where you have the ceremony maybe outside and the reception inside, and getting ready is inside, and you have all these different lighting situations, and you do try and make it as consistent as possible. So hopefully that's helpful, and if you guys have questions about how I edit or want to know more, totally let me know. All right, bye.